Brothers and sisters, welcome to Torah Talk. I'm Mark Davidson, and I'm joined via Skype by Brother Ludicrous White.
When you change the name, then you divert the true worship away from the true Creator. And even though you use the same words, and it's all about the things that YAHUSHA did, when you obfuscate around the name, then you're able to say, well, it wasn't YAHUSHA that did these things. It was Elmer Fudd or Daffy Duck. You just change the name, and then suddenly the adversary has slipped in there, and he will allow worship to be given to him by whatever name you want, except the true name.
If they get immersed, they don't really understand. They don't realize, I don't think at the time, that they're actually inviting an entity to come and live inside them. It sounds spooky, but it's like that. It's what you're feeling inside you, and you try to blame somebody else for your feeling. But we understand now that that's his flogging. He's getting us into line. His flogging, his discipline, his chastisement, all from Hebrews 12.
Yahuwah used manna to illustrate the day that was the day before the Sabbath. He would give them a double portion, and that was very apparent. And then the people would see none if they went outside the camp. They weren't supposed to go outside the camp at all. Deuteronomy 16 says, let no man go out of his place on the Sabbath, because you don't have any business to do. You know, there's no work, there's no business. You're supposed to be in your place, in your vicinity. The goal is love. Even with all knowledge and all prophecy and understanding, we would be losing everything if we didn't have love. And to remember that there were warnings in Scripture that we not get carried away by these sorts of little storms and winds and doctrines that come along, false doctrines. There are waymarks where the tribes have left their names, actually the tribal names. Like one of the most interesting ones is the tribe of Dan. They would leave their name, their tribal name, on places like the Danube River. Okay, that river was named after the tribe of Dan. Evidently, they navigated up the river and down the river. And when Scandinavia was named by Pliny because of the presence of the tribe of Dan in that area.
It's got Dan in it.
And London is actually London, and words like Don are actually Dan, and London actually means abode of Dan. When we obey Yahuwah's commandments and we learn to love them, and we start looking for more to obey rather than figuring out ways to get around the few that we find, we would be better off having a heart for obedience. And what I wear tzitzit for is because he's commanded us to wear them. And it does help me remind me of Torah. That's what their function is. It's not for other people to see, though. See, the outward show of things is what YAHUSHA had a problem with. You know, the Pharisees were interested in the outward show to be hypocrite. They were hypocrites. They were actors. He would spill his seed, which is what we would think of when masturbation occurs. And of course, it was evil in Yahuwah's eyes, and he slew Onam for that. So you see, this is something that we want to see. Sexual sins are very serious, and Yahuwah uses those as illustrations of the way it makes him feel when Israel and the two houses are in rebellion. I don't care how old you are. If you meditate in his Torah, whenever you come together and rise up, lie down, you know, whatever, then you have something that you know you're doing that he really appreciates and he likes and he wants to see his children doing. And when he sees that, you feel it. You know, he's letting you know, you know, this is wonderful. While the dead will be raised on the first day of the 7th month, and then 10 days later, those who are yet alive will be covered or clothed with immortality. So we won't die, but we'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye. And then follows 5 days later, Sukkoth, which is, of course, going to be the wedding supper. He'll come back on Yom Teruah, but he will not set foot on the earth at that time, probably. But he will call up to himself and meet in the air, or in the atmosphere, and call people out that are first fruits. In the midst of the festival of matzah, there is a Sabbath, a weekly Sabbath. And from the morrow after that day, the day after that weekly Sabbath, that represents the resurrection, first fruits, because Yahusha is the first fruits. Many brothers and sisters. So starting from that point, you count for yourselves 7 complete, intact weeks. And the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, which will be the first day of the week, is Shavuot. Demonic activity, other people's accidental behavior can sometimes send us off into a rage, and it's because we become frightened, and the emotion of fear creates the next level of it's either flight or fight, and if we're not fleeing, then we're going to fight, so we get angry, and our anger is caused by our fear, because we're not in control. It was the fall from what? A dimensional fall, more than likely. The ability for Adam and Kuah to see things in a certain way. And, some of the things that we read about in the New Jerusalem, where there's gold that is transparent, well, that's because light will be changed in some way. Maybe the physical properties of the thing itself as well. Us being able to see through walls and go through physical objects will also be possible in our new bodies. So, yeah, and light would, of course, be affected as well, because the whole universe is groaning and it's decaying. It's breaking down, and we don't really know what it would be like to have all that repaired, and perfection to be restored.
From when you were saying he'll come back at this point and he'll, round about, and then this will happen, then this will happen. Well, I think it was spot on from what we've been understanding. There's so much orchestration went into the first coming. Like you said, he's not just going to go, ready, set, go now. Why would he? It's everything's going to be, he does everything in order.
On time, yeah. Everything's planned out. There's a specific time, and it's all going to be on schedule. But of course, it's not for us to. It's outside of our purview and our authority to set a date. But we know that the time is getting closer and closer and closer. While the other people of the world are going, oh well, it's been so long now, and most of the people that are in religion are just saying, well, things are going to just keep going on. See, a lot of the African people who are probably watching this are absolutely being convinced that the Yahudim and the Israelites in general were black only. They were coming out from a mixture of nations. There was a very vast mixture of nations. It said they came out of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, in a mixed multitude, because there were other enslaved peoples, and many of those were probably black too, as well.
Secret labs, you think it might culminate in that one anti-Messiah person. They're trying to breed a shell of some sort, some kind of superhuman being, so that I guess Satan can inhabit it, or something like that. You were saying
it would make sense that the adversary would be in the person, yes, if not a person that was born naturally, or an artificial type entity that was the shell would be born from a test tube, a womb, it would be manufactured in a test tube and then put into a woman and then birthed and then grown and then inhabited, but not have any kind of true mother or father, but just, because you can take a zygote and put it into a woman, and it'll attach itself to the uterus, and it will grow into a child and then be born, but it may not have any kind of inner presence. It would just be a shell. Okay. As they would say, having no soul. And you know, a lot of drummers have been flashing these bumper stickers around our city that says drum machines have no soul.
Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try and love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try and love one another right now. Try and love one another right now. That's all I've got so far.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
If it took Noah 100 years to build the ark, you know, I imagine that it took, just guessing, 400 or 500 years possibly to build those pyramids. Wouldn't you imagine?
Wow. So if they were trying to build them to protect themselves like a fort, they were obviously expecting to live a lot longer if it was going to take them 500 years to build this thing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm a sponge, you know, and I want to just be his conveyance. But you know, whatever he wants to teach me, I'll share. But the thing of it is, I've always felt like all of the time that I've been studying and I'm soaking up his words like a sponge, in order to drain them out into other people, of course. But the objective is to get me to a place where I understand. And of course, the place is to learn love. It's that simple, like you were saying. It isn't acquiring a load of knowledge. That Yahuwah said that we are not to eat of this tree, nor are we to touch it. You know. And then, you know, that's where it started. And so the war on this planet, you know, began. And it was basically, and I'm going to bring this out very clearly, that it's not a territorial issue, but the real key to the understanding is that the war and the winning of the war and the losing of the war is in the minds of people. It's in the mind. That's the ground, the battlefield, the battleground. When I pray for people or demonic strongholds on teachers that I pray for, I ask him to rebuke the demon and send the demon out of the person into a pit of darkness for holding, not to bother other people with, but to put that person, that demon or that spirit, in a place awaiting judgment day, you know, at the end of the 1,000-year millennium, you know, when everything is judged, and including the spirit. What I have on my shirt here, it looks like this. You have a yod, a hey, an ua, or a wa, which will show you that that's actually an errant pronunciation, and a hey. Yod, hey, ua, hey. See this letter up here? That's an aleph, and that's a ta. You know, and this means ox, and by extension it means strength. And this means a mark. You know, like make your mark. Yeah. You know, when a person couldn't read or write, they just make their mark. You know. Anyway, aleph and ta, and of course this is the Paleo Hebrew. The person that, or the being that has been ruling this earth, seeks to control and take the place of the true creator. And that is an identity thief. And that identity thief, of course, is our enemy. He's not really supposed to be in charge. And he's gone by several names. He's got a birthday, actually. His birthday is coming up for the world. It's December 25th. December 25th is the adversary's birthday. That was the birthday when the sun was reborn. The sun was worshipped in the skies. And he was known as Baal, Horus, and Zeus, and many other names that you can read about. And this identity thief has usurped or stolen away the identity and has caused the name to be occulted. The ancient text spells the name Yod He Ua Shin Ayin, How do you say that word? Well, the sha, as we looked at, this is an sh because it's teeth. Sh, sha. This is Yahu, Yahusha. That's what I've underlined here. See the sha? That's all that's written right there. Yahuwah made a covenant with him, and he told Abram to cut these. Well, 4 of the creatures were cut in half. No, three of the creatures were cut in half. That's what it was. There was a. Let me see. I think I have a. I think. What do you call these flashcards?
Flashcard.
I have a flashcard. Yeah. He told him to cut a heifer in half, and a ram in half, and a goat in half, and then he had a pigeon and a turtle dove. I guess he sort of put those on either side, and Yahuwah walked between them. Okay, and when Yahuwah walked between them, that was the sign of them being cut. That was the cutting of the covenant. So Brit, breathe, means to cut. Style, it's how do they say it?
Do not take my name in vain.
His name in vain. The word take and the word vain are not exactly clear, because you don't take a name, do you? But the word in the Hebrew can be taken that way as an interpretation, but it's not exactly a good way of explaining it, because what this commandment is saying is it's using the word nasa. Now let me find, I think I've got a flashcard for that. Now this is not the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. This is a Hebrew word, NASA. Now NASA does lift up quite a bit of stuff. They're lifting it up all the time. But that's what it means. It means to lift it up. So when we look at something and we read it, we go, well, that's the word NASA. Well, that's what we're doing. We're lifting up that word. Well, if we lift up his name, then, or miss his name, or whatever, that's not good. We don't want to miss his name when we lift it up. Now, the word nasa also means to throw or to cast. So it's like throwing something. In other words, when we speak, we're throwing. We're throwing something out. You do not nasa the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to naught, which is the Hebrew word shoah. Shoah means utterly laying waste. It means destruction. Now, if this word is in this commandment, it means annihilation. Now, you do not cast or lift up the name of Yahuwah to annihilation. Metanoio, yeah. And meta, this is one of our, what do you call these? Flashcards. Meta means to change, and noio means to comprehend something. So like gnosis or knowledge. And so you're changing what you're thinking, And the Hebrew word is actually most often probably nakam, but it also means the same general thing as teshuba, which is shortened to shub. Shub. In other words, that's the idea of turning around and changing one's mind. And actually, what we understand from Shaul and the other writers of the Hadashah is that we're to renovate our minds, renovate them, to renew them. 3,000 beings. Now, those 3,000 beings reflect back to Sinai. There were 3,000 beings added, and at Sinai there were 3,000 beings taken away. Our immersion is the moment that we personally enter into the renewed covenant with Yahusha when he writes the Torah on his Torah on our hearts. Baruch, yeah, Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. Now, that's Psalm 118. Baruch, blessed is the one who comes, haba, b'shem, the name. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of Yahuwah. Wow. I see some kind of an enemy ship off in the distance.
wonderful.
It's too much all to take in all at once.
Eschatology, which is the Greek word for the extreme end days, is explaining that there's really two resurrections. And the first resurrection is a special resurrection of Yahuwah's treasured possession. And it involves a book of remembrance. Those people are meditating upon the name that's in Malachi chapters 3 and 4. And and he notices it. And they're speaking to one another, saying, hey, let's study his name. And then a book of remembrance pops up. But he's not going to reveal his name or give his name to those that are still living in Egypt. If you're not going to repent and return to his covenant, then he's not going to make his name mean a thing to you. He's going to have you saying, well, it doesn't really matter what we call him. I mean, he's got thousands of names. Let me show you.
Blow people's brains with that little gem.
Yeah. Well, that's the amazing thing is when they start reading John chapter 21, it's just going to just jump out at them. And they're going to go, wow, this is real. They were even speaking about it then. That, hey, that one's never going to die. And they were saying it. And he wrote it down that they were saying it,
And if it was like an error, Yahusha would have went, that's not what I meant, mate. No, that's not what I meant.
Right.
He would have. Yeah. He wasn't going to have them walking around with falsehood. So. And
then we got this place here. We know that John or Yahushua was here.
Yeah. Mm.
And
if they try and boil you twice in oil and it doesn't work, that's pretty much you can't live with your flesh burnt off, can you?
It was 3 times.
Three times?
Yeah, they tried. It didn't work. Yeah. First time didn't work. Okay, let's do it again. And then now they didn't work. Well, maybe we're not doing something right. Check that water, or check that oil. And then they probably really roared it up, getting it really hot. And it didn't work the 3rd time, so they said, well, that's it. At the immersion of Yahusha, there was a dove that appeared to show the first work. The first work of Yahusha was one of death. And then his second work involves life. The first, when he was being immersed, a dove appeared to show his first work. It was an identification for the cleansing of the leprosy of sin. And after immersion, we're legally declared clean in Mashiach. So immersion has to do with our leprosy too. Whenever you have leprosy, you're to dip yourself in the water. And our bodies of sin and death are subjected to death. And at his second appearance, Yahusha will bring, at his appearing, we will receive a new body. And it'll be made incorruptible, and it'll be free of all leprosy as well as sin.
The word Christian, or Christianos, is not what people think it is. It doesn't lead us to believe in the Messiah or the Anointed One. That's not really what the label infers, is it? It actually means idiot. There's not really any gentle way to break that, is there?
Not to my... it's really sad that people don't realize this, but this started a long, long time ago. The word Christianos that they found 3 times in the text. Christianity, of course, isn't there at all, but Christianos is a term that's used to describe the believers in Yahusha. They don't call themselves that. It's a term of scorn. And if you look up the etymology or the word source for the word Cretan, it actually means a poor fellow or an idiot. And they thought that they were simple because of they were so kind. There was a spirit within them that made them seem gullible, But that wasn't something we called ourselves. And their idea of not obeying the covenant is a stronghold. One of the things that we have fellowship with Yahusha through is the covenant. In fact, that's the primary fellowship, the relationship that we have with Yahusha is the covenant that he brings to write upon our hearts, which is in Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 31. The new covenant, a renewed covenant, is him writing it upon our hearts. He says he's going to do that. And it's quoted in Hebrews chapters 8 and 10. And in one of the things that says in First John chapter 1, First Yahushua, it says, and this is the message which we have heard from him and announced to you, that Elohim is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie, and we're not doing the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of YAHUSHA, Messiah, his son, cleanses us from all sin. That's very important to understand. Really, way back in Genesis or Bereshith chapter 2, and look at verse 18, it says, "And Yahuwah Elohim said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to make a helper for him as his counterpart." And a counterpart can be thought of as a match, a mate, or an opposite part that completes the person, you know. And then continuing, it says, "And from the ground Yahuwah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all livestock and to the birds of the heavens and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper." Now the interesting thing is that word helper is the Hebrew word Ezer, which is in the man's name, Eliezer, the one that went out and found the wife for him as his counterpart. So Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. And the rib which Yahuwah Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called Isha, because she was taken out of Adam," or the man. "For this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his Isha, and they shall become one flesh."
Not cleave to his ish.
Yeah, you don't want to cleave to your Steve or your John. You want to cleave to your Isha. Your Isha. An Ish cleaves to an Isha. A man cleaves to a woman, you know. And it doesn't say you cleave to more than one woman, you know. See, a lot of people think that, and they're taught by their preachers, that what happens is there's a rapture, and it just happens. And then the Great Tribulation ensues, and that's the way he protects them. He has to get them out. But you see, that's not exactly right, because we're going to be changed, you know, in the twinkling of an eye, and we'll be protected from the things that are happening. And then we will meet him in the air. That's true. However, during the Great Tribulation, we're going to remain here, you know. And I know that we'd like to get the timing right, but and we know that he's our husband. So that would mean that we'd have to address things that we see in the world and say, well, has society really turned aside to myths? We know they have. But we don't do them, and we don't criticize them. We just show them the truth, and then they will automatically turn away from that when they accept it. When they accept the truth, they're not going to. You can't go up to a person that's dead, or that has a wineskin loaded down with old wine, or a lamp that's filled with no oil but men's teachings, and say to them, "You know what you really need to be doing is not doing what you're doing." You know, they're going to look at you and say, "What?" You know. But if you tell them the truth, then eventually that will change them, you know, because his spirit will respond, because it says that those who obey him receive his spirit. That's Acts 5:32. So the lamp is our heart, which is our spiritual component, and the oil represents teachings which are eternal, the eternal words. And that corresponds in another sense to wineskins being our heart. It's the same thing as a lamp, and that's our inner spirit. And the new wine is, of course, the Torah, his teachings, the eternal words, and the old wine would represent men's traditions or men's teachings, you know.
And the metaphors are actually used in order to conceal the meaning from people who are rebellious. So those who want to keep the men's traditions will resist the truth, and they will have a form of Elohimness, but they will deny the power. They will not accept the spirit of Yahusha that's knocking. So this false prophet, this little horn, secular and spiritual ruler of all the earth, has the hat of Dagon on his head. And he sits in the throne of Hashatan. And he was given the throne and great power by the dragon. And what is interesting, too, is in the Jesuits' mindset, individual freedom of conscience is abhorrent to them and this ruler. And only his authority is legitimate, and all the kings of the earth are as altar boys to do his bidding. And behind his power is the prince of darkness, the controller follows. Now a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. Therefore, 3.5 days can be also looked upon as 3,500 years. Because that's, if a day is 1,000 years, and 3.5 days, it would have to be 3,500 years. Now that's one other way of looking at things. But the covenant, which is the marriage, occurred on Mount Sinai, and promises were exchanged. Now the marriage feast is still ahead, and it should be about 3,500 years after the two witnesses were slain by the beast system. So the truth fell in the streets, as it is said. Because if you look at it one-dimensionally, then you're going to lose that. But if you look at it in a more dimensional viewpoint, it could be that these two men could also be reflected in the fact that the witnesses themselves, being the covenant, have already been prophesying to the world, saying the Ten Commandments. You know about these? You know, who hasn't heard of the Ten Commandments? You know, and they're teaching against them. And the government's saying, no, you can't put these in here. What do you think this is? This is the government's property. No, this belongs to the people, you know.
Yeah, you had soldiers marching around with it, didn't you? People over in the desert. Didn't you send a photo through someone in the desert holding up one of those?
Yes. Yes. Soldiers and people in India, China, the islands of the sea. But, yeah, Yahusha gave me that image as a simple thing one time, many, many years ago. And I never claimed it as my own. It's not. I mean, how could anyone claim that? And people have, well, they started writing to me saying, hey, can we use that? I said, use it? Oh, yes. Please. Lift it high and make people understand what it means. The symbol of his name and the symbol of his word embodied in those two objects in the middle, and the fields above and below. First coming and the second coming. You know, the first Exodus and the second Exodus. You know, and they also represent the waters that were separated. The waters from above were separated from the waters from below.
Oh,
and he dwells in the Shamayim in between. Knowing his heart, he's probably not going to punish people and torment them like we would see somebody in the neighborhood possibly that lights a cat on fire and watches it die miserably. I don't think he's like that. I don't think that he will destroy the sinner because of the fact that they were offered eternal life. And then if you're going to be suffering for eternity, then it would seem logical that you would have eternal life too. But it doesn't say they have eternal life. It says that it's a second death. Now, a death is a death, an end point. And a second death would be another second end point. So there's a body and there's a spirit. And when they're separated, the body dies. There's an eternal being that he created in each one of us. And when that dies, it's sleeping. until it's awakened at the resurrection. And then it's either going to receive reward or it's going to receive punishment. And the punishment would be an endpoint, a second death. And that is what Scripture says. Now, if it said, yes, absolutely, it's going to be going on forever and ever and ever, and they're going to be tortured, and people are going to be in pain. Well, it would go into that, if we're to know this, you know.
And he is the vine, and his Father is the vine dresser. He prunes the ones that are producing fruit so that they might be able to produce more fruit. He works us, and that hurts. And that's one of the things that we feel. We go, ow, that hurt. And then others...
That's a polite response.
I know. And then others that don't produce fruit at all are dead. Yeah. They're just dead sticks. And he comes and removes them, and then he burns them, or will burn them. Yeah. So that's really what the deal is. We can be in the vine for a while, but if we don't produce fruit, then he's going to just chop us off, and there won't be any pruning. It's just going to be boink, you're gone. You know. Yeah. So we don't want to be a dead part of the body. We've got to be alive. His Spirit gives us life, and he speaks through us. And if we're speaking, then we're just babbling. But if he's talking, then that's what's most important. You know, that's all that's important.
Now, there's one other country. There's the United States, there's Russia, and there's Israel. Israel has a mutually assured destruction deterrent policy too. And they named theirs the Samson option. If you all Google the Samson option, and you're going to find it has a history that goes back to the 1960s. In other words, they had the nuclear energy there. It's estimated that Israel has the third strongest army on the planet. You don't mess with it. You don't mess with it. In fact, one of the leaders was saying that Israel needs to be like a mad dog. You don't want to even mess with it. But they do.
Everyone is.
They target the people, the Philistines, I'm going to call them the Philistines, that's what they want to be called, are targeting from Gaza civilian populations. What madness is that? Who's ever heard of such a thing? Anyway, and then when they respond to try to target the source, then the world's media goes, oh, look what they did. Well, 13,000 plus missiles have been launched into that country in just recent years. So, you know, what? You know, if any country was being bombarded in their civilian populations, and then then the media will say, look, these children were killed. But what about the children they're targeting? They're not targeting the children, but the other side is. You know, it's so one-sided. It's so amazing. YAHUSHA said in his word, of course, he's the creator, that he would restore what the devourer had taken away. And I don't care if it's in this world either. You know, I mean, that's nothing. Just seeing his face is, the pure of heart will see his face, you know. And the people that don't have a pure heart have ugliness, and they judge and they see ugliness everywhere they look. They're looking for the darkness, and they see darkness. We work in darkness. I mean, it's almost like there's no light at all in this world. I live in a country where, I'm sure it's true of most places now, it's a culture of violence. The culture of violence is produced from not having the Torah taught to children. In the home, in the schools, all the education of the children is brought up completely devoid of Torah. They don't know how to love anybody. So what's the result of no love? You know, YAHUSHA said it in Matthew 24. You know, because of a lack of love, the love had grown cold, and therefore all these things were going to manifest themselves. And of course, that's why the governments are getting swollen, is because the marriages are failing, because the people in the marriages don't know how to love. They don't know what priorities are. They don't even know the Creator, and they don't teach or know the commandments. In fact, if you ask a Christian pastor, or even some of the Nazarene teachers, to just name the commandments in order, I bet you'd be pretty shocked to find that they couldn't do it. when he was entering the city of Jerusalem, it was obviously around the 10th day of the Hebrew calendar when the lamb was being selected in the spring. And the lamb has to be selected on the 10th day of the first month. And that was the day of his triumphal entry. And he was riding on the foal, or on a donkey, a young donkey that had never been ridden on. And he was going into Jerusalem. And all the people were saying, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah, which means blessed is the one who's coming in the name of Yahuwah, from Psalm 118. And they were pronouncing the name. Pronouncing the name was not allowed. The hierarchy, the Sanhedrin, and all the people that had inherited the doctrine to not know the name, they had actually succeeded in people not knowing the name. His response to them was, well, if they did not say this, the stones would cry out. The stones would cry out. And then it went into, well, I'm sure he gave me the idea that the stones would cry out this name. And then I thought, well, that means that his name is written somewhere on stone. And the stones would cry out, and the evidence of the name would be there. And it isn't like the scholarly community and the ecclesiastical bodies haven't known the name. They do know the name, and they've always known the name. It was used in the movie 10 Commandments. It was the Paleo-Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, not the modern Hebrew Aramaic script, but not that square script, but the original writing was on the tablets that Charlton Heston was holding. And it was also the same script was used on that headpiece that was used in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So even the movie theater people, the movie makers of this era, were able to go to and get consultation on how to write something, and they were given the correct, not only the correct words, but the correct script. The stone, the foundation stone that cannot change, is the name of the Creator. It can't change. And that's what they had done, because the stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. And when you build on that stone, then you have the key of knowledge, and it will unlock all the mysteries in the scriptures. It's actually a key. And I discovered that key from the very beginning. So every sentence that I read when I read the scriptures was unlocked to me, because I realized what it meant, because he explained it to me in my spirit. It was a communication, because it is locked. If you don't have the key, you can read the words and they will not make sense. But put the name into the lock, and it works.
Wow.
It's the foundation. She was feeling so positive, and then something happened, and she said, I'm not going to let that get me down. And then the adversary comes along with another thing and says, well, that didn't get your attention? Well, watch this. And something else happens. And it's not so much, sometimes it's drama in others, and sometimes it's this or that, a circumstance. But what those things are the storms. And the storms of life cannot get us down, because we don't stand in our own strength. That's what we tend to do. We try to say, well, I'm handling this. I'm handling this. But you see, here's what the deal is. We can literally walk on water. Now, that's a figurative thing. Don't go out there and try that right now, anyway. But
yeah.
YAHUSHA allows us to walk on water and be above the storm and the waves, because we keep our eyes on Him and His strength. So we walk in His strength and not ours.
So those people would not have believed that the earth was flat?
Absolutely not, no. They weren't flat earthers at all.
Oh, that's an expression, is it?
Yeah, flat earthers. Oh, they're on the internet too. If you look up flat earthers on YouTube or flat earthers on Google or one of the search engines, there's people that really do believe the earth is flat. I mean, they look out and they go, yep, it's flat. These people that think it's a sphere are wrong. Anyway.
The satellites are just deceiving us.
And we've never been to the moon.
Oh,
of course.
Well, that was a conspiracy, of course.
Yeah, that's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Did you see the flag? The flag was moving. Yeah. Well, there's a solar wind out there too. You know, there is a thin atmosphere on the moon, but it's so thin that it's almost not there at all. But you can jump around. You're like 1/6 your weight here.
Like you could just sit there and you go into another world. Just if a certain person with a certain voice hits a certain note, you just go boom. Your eyes roll back and you've gone. You know, and like it's just.
Well, the average person doesn't even understand what we're talking about, but I completely.
I've seen Lou do that so many times.
Oh yeah, I've been in a trance just playing, and Phyllis can't talk. Hello, where are you? I've left the building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, music is just so incredible. It's intoxicating, you know, in a good way.
Yeah.
You know? And it does evoke emotions, but I kind of stay away from certain sorts of styles of music that evokes anger. You know, I don't like that. And he is saying, "This is my body, which is given for you and broken." He's illustrating a metaphoric illustration of himself that was about to go into them as food. It wasn't that the bread was him. He was still there, but he was telling them, I'm going to be in you and become part with you and share in your lives in a spiritual sense. That's why he had to go away, so he could come back in the spirit form and fill his temple, the people. But we are his body. It isn't a little wafer. Yeah.
Because when you come into YAHUSHA, whew, you feel it. You start doing things wrong and it's just, it's pain. You know? You get so tired of the pain you overcome.
You can, when you have a relationship with him, you can actually feel when his face turns away from you. You can feel it. It isn't like he's too busy doing something elsewhere. You can feel his face turn away from you. And where'd you go? You know, where are you? You know, and that's what David felt, the psalmist. You know, he was feeling his face turning away. And, you know, that was removing his spirit, you know, just withdrawing, you know. It's a conversation. You have to stay connected to pray always. You have to stay connected with him. His, prophecy is the testimony of YAHUSHA. So if you open your mouth, I open my mouth, or another that is a follower of his opens their mouth, he's speaking. And we have to listen to his voice when it connects with Scripture, and we understand that he's interpreting Scripture, interpreting not the future events so much, but interpreting what has happened and what it represents in our lives and how we're supposed to learn from this. The servant is the key, and the one that serves is the one who loves. Because a servant that is a permanent servant is one who loves his master. We remember the servant procedure that wants to become a lifelong servant will have his ear pierced and a ring put in it. That's one of the symbols of a permanent servant. And we are a permanent servant of YAHUSHA, unless we fall away. But the servant has everything to do with love. And love is the thing that is the driving force within us that enables us to serve. But as I'm doing this study, the servant is actually, I'm going to reveal it to you right now because it's not easy for people, but YAHUSHA is the servant. He said, I did not come to be served, but to serve. And he's going to remain that way. He's a servant king, as you named the last Torah talk. And he in us is doing the serving. So when we see a servant, we're seeing him in his behavior. If a brother or a sister is serving, then it's him doing it in them. Because we are fleshly and we're bound up with all these selfish ideas. And that's why I keep mentioning Philippians 2 And the text that we keep talking about, because love is the key to this whole thing. He's alive in us.
Yeah.
And that's why we're able to serve, and that's why the two key points: to let everyone have their way or their opinion about whatever it is, as we guide them. And they're wrestling and disputing, and we're calm and peaceful, and we go, keep going, not judging, but loving them and serving them in spite of their differences and our differences, and then not taking it personally, because it's Yahusha in us that is being persecuted, attacked, and maligned. It's not us. So they can disagree with our words, but whose words are they? They're not our words. So have you learned anything this particular Passover season?
Oh, I learned that it takes a lot of effort. I mean, we all sometimes have this yearning when we see all the other people doing the bunny rabbits and the Christmas times and all that, and we think, and we know what they're all about inside and out, and we can. It'd be so easy to teach our kids that because we were so engrossed in it. When it comes to Passover and Shavuot and first fruits and things, it seems like such an effort to break, because obviously there's a lot coming against it, to break through it and get the point through to your children, and to make it a fun time, something they'll remember. And each year you get to the end of it and go, yeah, we did all right, but we'll do it better next year. It's a shame that it takes such an effort, because we're so far into the truth.
Love is our foremost goal, and we can't have love until we surrender to Yahusha's servant heart, where we put the other person above ourselves, and we think of them more highly than ourselves. We don't esteem ourselves. We stop being envious and competitive, and we don't try to get Gnostic and make charts and all the things that go on. We're still doing. But the next fruit of the Spirit is joy. When you have love, you have joy and peace, and you achieve kindness and goodness and gentleness, and all these things can happen. They all unfold like a flower, But when everybody's so rigid, it makes it difficult for them.
Yeah. We often don't understand peace either, do we? If we were to shut up, stand back, and do nothing, don't get in anybody's way, don't go, picking fights, don't do anything for like a whole week, we'd probably sit there and we'd be so bored. But the thing I learned this week is waiting, standing back and waiting for Yahusha, and that stillness, I guess, or that what people would think is boring, that's actually his peace. It's just still, it's quiet, and we're so used to having drama and little arguments and tiffs and pressure and everything that we get the peace of Yahusha and we go, oh, that's boring, I don't want that. It's its peace. That's what we're supposed to have. So a treasure chest.
Yes, it looks it's a box of mysteries. And I thought, well, what if we had a little box of mysteries, and we just and picked up this, a little, had a little secret that we were going to reveal. From the time. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
These are all things. This is kind of representative of what we've been doing over the last couple of years. Is taking a little thing and going, what's this about? Just little things that we've been tweaking, and it occurred to me the mark of the beast. Well, what's a beast? It's an animal. Where are the animals? Oh yeah, they're up there in the stars. And I'm always reminded of it almost every day. Somebody's having a birthday. Well, I say, well, is it really your birthday today? Or is it the anniversary of your birthday? Yeah, it's more like the anniversary of your birthday. But what is your birthday? What does it have to do with? It has to do with the Babylonian, zodiac and what sign you are and all that. And it occurred to me that this is all a web of ideas that have been locked together that people don't instantly associate with, the other things. And that's what they're doing. They just keep practicing this. And so they're marked. They're in their behavior. They're actually marching along in their lives, following this pattern. And we're trying to get them out of that stronghold,
Yeah. What is the most significant event in human history?
Oh, yeah. Now, if you didn't have any belief in the Creator creating the universe, and the universe didn't create itself, I think I've got a card that says that. And I saw this on the internet, so it has to be true.
Yeah. The resurrection of YAHUSHA. Acts 17, 1 Corinthians 15.
And those are describing the fact that if he did not rise, well, Acts 17 says that this is the evidence, that he is who he is. And that 1 Corinthians 15, 14 and through 17 talks about the fact that if he did not resurrect, then we're all doomed. We're going to perish because we're still in our sins. And that means that we are going to die like dogs, possibly. But that's not our hope. Our hope is in our redemption, which is our bodily resurrection or transference into, the ascended being that he plans for us. Now, before that happened, what was the most significant thing in human history? Do you know what it is?
Oh, I've seen it.
You've already seen it?
I've seen it. I cheated.
You cheated. The giving of the Torah at Sinai. Yeah. And that changed everything.
Well, I'd like to thank all the brothers and sisters for putting up with us for 50 episodes, and for all the encouraging emails and comments on the video clips on YouTube, all the ideas and questions and things to discuss. Particularly in season 1, Chris was just always ask Lou this, ask Lou this. Go on, Mike, ask Lou this. It was really encouraging. Because some weeks I just have nothing to say. So he really encouraged me, and then we went into the first fruits and did all that foundational teaching and the eschaton, what's going to happen in the end, and then the sharp sickle, the wheat and the tares, and it's been a journey, brother.
Yeah,
and
it's
not over.
Oh no, it's not over until the shouting. Until the fat lady thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. When YAHUSHA returns, we're wanting him back so much. The world is just spinning way out of control.
Yeah.
But he is in control. But it's just supposed to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
We're seeing it.
Well, we'll see you soon, brother.
All righty. Love you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
People, it's all or nothing now. You're either a weed or you are Donnell. You're breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. Breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling?